Welcome to Freed on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's Jim Freed, and this is Freed on Business.
Welcome back to the show. As we head towards episode 800, we're going to have one of our good friends on, Tom Handler. I want to welcome everybody to the show. I want to remind everybody we're streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. Look for us at Freed on Business or at Jim Freed. And again, as I said, today is our guest. Today our guest, I got all excited. Today our guest is Tom Handler, the founder of Handler Law. Welcome to the show, Tom Handler.
Jim, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, you serve so many families, and, Warren Henry, our sponsor, is third generation. They do great things here in the community. They are just, the top auto dealer here. And I know how hard it is to get to the third generation. Warren Henry's run by Larry's in the third generation. And I want to tip my hat to his dad, Warren, and Eric Day, two of the top execs there. But now let's talk a little bit about what's been going on. There's some current events that I know that have you all stirred up, that have made you and your wife dance in your living room a couple of weeks ago. Tell me a little bit more about what you see coming down the pike for families, high net worth investors here as we look into 2025.
So, Jim, the election results surprised us in my 100-year blue state where there are no moderates, Republicans, or libertarians running for anything. And we are only the second most corrupt state, but the most bankrupt and consistently one of the very highest overall taxing. We are number one in 2022. How can you be the highest taxing state and the most bankrupt state at the same time? That takes award-winning incompetence and thievery. So my guys are special. So to watch this happen, all the states around us, went the other direction. But this is good news for jobs. It's good news for the economy, and it's good news for employers and businesses in general, in that Trump is pretty moderate in that regard versus what I viewed as a fairly extreme Marxist policy coming out of the Democratic Party, which is kind of shocking. I was a big John F. Kennedy fan, thought he was outstanding. I have his tapes. I have a statue of him. And, he was more conservative than Trump, right? But the people running against Trump were just so far off. I don't know what party they belong in, but I am not at all displeased that they did not get elected. And it should have been an 80-20 vote, as far as I'm concerned. I don't understand how they could get the votes they got, but that's a whole nother issue. So this is good news for everybody, because Trump-type economics benefits the little guy, and a rising tide raises all boats. So the reality is that the middle class will be better taken care of because Trump is not numb to them, and the lower class will be better off because they'll continue to get index benefits at a rate unheard of on the entire planet other than here. Our lower class, our bottom ninth, without working a day in their lives, the average person owns a car or a truck, lives in a home with 2.1 rooms per person, has a flat screen TV, a phone, and a computer. And that's without working a day in their lives. And our bottom ninth is the 10% wealthiest people on earth, right? So they've been helped by all of these things that have gone on around us. And I think a lot of minorities and low-income people finally figured out that the Democratic Party, as of late, is not the same party it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when they were making significant changes and really making a difference. They've morphed into something else. And as a result, a lot abandoned and voted the other way because they've not been helped in the last 15 years, roughly, because of the policies going on. So for business owners and individuals that are making it happen, there's a lot of good news here, pretty much across the board. And the biggest issue, I think, stems from the fact that there's a very likely chance now that the TCJA, which is the bill put in place by Trump, the primary result was that it stopped American businesses from piling money offshore expatriating, which we call an inversion. You move a company offshore. I want to say like 156 of the Fortune 500 are still based in the United States. They all just left. And I would argue if you're a director, you have a fiduciary duty to leave. You can go get a 14% tax in Ireland versus a 35% tax here. How do you justify that? And just because you like the country, you're supposed to be making money for the shareholders who are global. Very tough position to be in. So many of those boards left, and that stopped completely because the TCJA, though it's not the lowest rate or near the lowest rate in the world, that 21% is a much more favorable rate than what we had, and it stopped all that. So a lot of the money came back to the States, a lot of capital was repatriated, fewer companies left, and it was very positive. But the impact on individuals is also significant. It really rubbed up the economy. And that act is set to sunset automatically on December 31 of 2025. And a ton of the planning that's been going on for the last 2 years was based on the thought that that act is going to end, and we're going to go back to the old days. So let me go through some of the pieces that are specifically or most important to clients. Does that make sense, Jim?
100%, Tom. Keep going. I'd interrupt you if I didn't think you were on a great roll. I want to hear about all the things you have to say here because it's all solid gold.
Yeah, I think this is good for everybody. Businesses will be stronger, the economy will be stronger, there'll be more jobs, and hopefully they can get their handle on inflation because, buying a gallon of milk I would come home with a whole grocery bag, years ago. Now I just come home with 1 gallon of milk. So people are noticing the difference. It's tough duty. And the taxes on gasoline in states like Illinois and California, I might as well be buying gold, right? It's just gasoline that I'm buying. So, for example, the tax rate for the top individuals, which kicks in at $731,000 and change for a married couple, or $609,000 and change for an individual, that was 39.6 under the old law, and it's 37 under the TCJA. So it's not tremendous relief, but it's some relief. And now that the Republicans appear to have significant control via the Senate and the executive branch, they may have control of the House as well. And if not, it'll be so close, they should be able to push a lot through. I think there's a more likely than not chance that the TCJA gets extended. So these changes and tax cuts put in place that were very effective will continue to be effective. And they've held up the economy for years after Trump's administration because they did the right thing and align the incentives for people to invest the right way, build businesses, grow, and ultimately pay more taxes and hire more people. So kind of good for everybody. Trump has also talked about doing away with or raising the SALT limitation. And what that means is for people who have state and local taxes, with California over 14%, you got states at 11 and 12. Illinois had a 12% proposal pushed by our governor that narrowly got defeated, largely because individual taxpayers ponied up over $50 million to defeat it. But it would have made us the highest overall taxing state by a huge margin. It didn't pass. But that state tax, both income tax and real estate tax, is capped at $10,000. So it really penalizes the expensive states. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Minnesota, California, Arizona got slaughtered because the regular millionaires are paying $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 of these taxes every single year, and they can deduct 10. So the cost just went up by 45% or 50%, depending on what state you live in. Huge personal increase, huge cut in what people can spend. So if that SALT limitation get raised, it will be less insulting to those who are paying all the taxes anyway and supporting the entire population, which is inordinately the top 1% or the top 10%. 60% of the bottom taxpayers in 2022 paid no tax, no income tax whatsoever, 60% of the U.S. population. The estate tax exclusion, this has been causing a lot of planning because the thought was the exclusion is going to drop back to $5 million plus indexing. It's currently in 2023, 2024, it was 13.61 million. For 2025, it's indexed. It goes up to 13.99 million, the highest exclusion in the history of the country. And what that means is individuals can give away that much money before paying the estate tax. And of course, only the top 1% pay the estate tax anyway. But of course, they're paying all their taxes as well. So it allows them to get them a little, give them a little bit of a break. So the TCJA automatically removes that exclusion amount and knocks it back down to 5 million plus indexing. So maybe 6.5, 7, something in that ballpark. And again, I think the TCJA will likely be extended, and that won't happen. So that's a huge opportunity to not pay a tax on which you've already paid tax on the money. Then you saved the money and didn't lose it. Then you made money on the investment. Then you paid capital gain when you sold it. Then they want to tax it a third time in your estate. So it's a pretty confiscatory tax as it is. So this exclusion's at least a drop in the bucket, but is better than nothing. Capital gains. This is a big one. And this was discussed a lot during the election. Capital gains right now are 20%, which is about as low as it's been in quite some time. It was 28%, before the Trump bill, and it's been higher and lower over time. So right now, that exclusion is likely to stay in that ballpark. But the proposals that came out of the Democratic Party, so Biden was proposing a 43.6% capital gains tax, which is confiscatory, because then many states tax on top of that. So you could be easily paying well over 50% of your capital gains, which is designed to encourage long-term investment. That's what we want. We want that long-term investment. That builds plants, that builds businesses, that creates jobs. That long-term investment's the name of the game, and the longer term, the better, frankly. Taking 43.6 of it is absolutely confiscatory. And that was in the Biden Green Book. He talked about it throughout his administration, and now that's off the table with the control of Congress and the White House. That just isn't happening, so people don't have to be horrified. The potential Kamala administration, she proposed 33% capital gain tax, just a 5% increase. But they stuck with the worst proposal, which was sort of a tax in the estate on one hand, or annual on the other. And their proposal was that capital gains would be assessed to all your appreciated property every year, just as though you got paid cash. So you own a building, and the building went from $110,000 to $115,000. You pay tax on the $5,000 increase. You probably have to have valuation, so all the valuation firms get really rich. What a great deal for them. I'm going to start a valuation firm if that proposal gets changed, just to be clear. A lot of money to be made there. So it is incredibly burdensome. It's a brain dead proposal because the cost of doing this would be insane. All these valuations for nominal increases. And where do the people get the money to pay the tax? They didn't sell anything. They're not liquid. They still own the asset. So it's a huge issue. Absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. One of the worst ideas I've heard in my 40 years of working in the tax area. It's just extraordinarily bad idea. Well, you can rest assured that thing's dead as a doornail. That will not happen in the foreseeable future, at least. So I'd say that's a big relief, because taxpayers were having a heart attack, and the real estate players in particular having the biggest heart attack. Was, we know the deal. You start off with a 2-flat, and you keep exchanging it, doing 1031 like-kind exchanges, and 50 years down the road, it's the Sears Tower or the John Hancock Building or the Empire State Building, and your basis is the same as the 2-flat. So you can't afford to sell that building, nor do you want to tax that on an annual basis, but that's the goal. You want to encourage long-term investment so that people have a place to live over the long haul. We got a shortage of residential housing and condos and co-ops already. Let's not make it any worse. The qualified business income deduction, that is much more likely to stay now. And this is a deduction for lower income meaning under 191,000 and some change. A 20% deduction for all kinds of businesses off their business income tax. So this is likely to remain in place because the TCJA will likely get renewed. And the gift tax exclusion is also the highest it's been. It was $18,000 in 2024. That moves to $19,000 in 2025. So it's a significant number because you can make those gifts to a limited number of people without paying a gift tax. You will get hit in a number of states who charge the gift tax on $1 or with very, very little exclusion or very low exclusions. But for federal purposes, you will be able to give away that $19,000 amount starting in 2025. And if you've got 4 children and 10 grandchildren, that's 14 gifts. And you and your spouse can double up, and so you can each make that gift. So it's a pretty significant way to allow you to get money to the next generation that you've already paid tax on at least twice, maybe 3 times. So there's really no need for confiscatory taxation at that level. And Jim, to your point, getting money to the third generation is incredibly difficult. The vast majority of wealth in the country is self-made. It's not inherited. And the statistics say that only 10% of wealth makes it to the third generation. I think that data is flawed. I think the number is probably closer to 20%, but it's still a very low number and it's very difficult to do. So congratulations to anybody who's got through the third generation, much less to the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. And the families that survive that longer run, they're smart enough. They don't allow the family to benefit when they don't deserve to benefit. And so they treat the non-family employees well or better than the family. And many of these family businesses are in the 8th, 9th, 10th generation. Some here in Chicago, you have to work 2 to 3 years someplace else first. So you can't even apply to the family business till you've gone someplace else because you'll never appreciate the culture or the environment. And then secondly, as you go up for promotion, you get the job you deserve. So if you're only capable of loading trucks or sweeping the floors, that's where you start. And maybe you end up being a driver or a salesperson. You're capable of being the CEO, and you rise up to be CEO. But when you're up against a non-family member and you're tied, the family member loses. So you have to win handily or you don't get promoted. And then the rest of the employees realize that this isn't just going to benefit family members that don't deserve there, that the family members will only get there if they actually earned it. And in this case, earned it more than you did. And the willingness of those families to go outside to get independent executives, independent boards is one of the single most highly correlated attributes of businesses that live to fight another day. So knowing when to reach out. When you have no one to run the show, you don't have a CEO, you go outside and you get them. When you don't have directors capable of running the show, you bring in outside directors, and when the family members can step up, you put them back in those slots. So professionalizing the family business is a huge deal in moving forward. And I think under what we are likely to see as these new laws or a continuation of laws that would otherwise go by the wayside, this is all good news for business and the economy and the working man, because Trump is very cognizant of the middle class and has been for quite some time. And I think he got an inordinate amount of those votes. He captured a much higher percentage of the Black and Hispanic vote than anybody expected. And I think they're looking at the same thing. You know, what are you going to do for us? And it's not just about the people at the high end or the people at the low end. You know, those people in the middle need to be taken care of too. So that's my hope. And I had no hope for the last 4 years, no hope whatsoever at the mess going on. Tragic is the only thing that comes to mind. And now I have hope. This could be a game changer. We get back on the path that got us here in the first place. And so I'm no longer crying for my grandchildren. I feel now that we actually have a shot of not destroying what our founders created. So it's all good news as far as I can tell. That being said, I'm still going to pay a mountain of tax. I can't believe how much tax I have to pay. But on the other hand, greatest country in the world, and now there's a good chance it's going to stay that way.
Well, Tom, that was a tremendous run through of some of the policies that are in place, some of the policies that have a chance of sticking, and some of the evolution that we're going to get a chance to see. We only have a couple of minutes left, and then we're going to go to break, and then we'll come back for our final word. But a lot of conversation has been about the offshoring of all these companies and all the wealth, and people were leaving the United States. It sounded to me like you were saying that now the wealth creation is going to be focused here in the United States, and that the small, medium, and high net worth investors all have a better opportunity. Thoughts? Absolutely. The number of individuals that expatriate or renounce their citizenship under the Democratic presidents is unprecedented, under Obama in particular. Just massive thousands of people left, and the same thing was true under Biden. And I think the principles on which the country were founded, we are hopefully getting back to those.
And I think that's a big step in the right direction for everybody, because we're the only country in the world where our lower 1/9 is in the top 10% wealthiest people on planet Earth. And the reason for that is the system that got us here, and people's hard work, and not entitlement, but empowerment, the ability to go out and earn something and make a difference and better yourself and study and work hard and so on and so forth. And that American dream needs to remain there for future generations so we can continue doing what we're doing.
I want to thank Tom Handler. Tom, we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to talk about that third generation of Warren Henry, and then we'll be back for your bottom line. So start mulling over what pearls of wisdom you want to leave our folks today. We'll be right back after this. Mr. Mendoza, show all that real estate that people invest in. You know, Tom's talking about how difficult it is to have success in the third generation. So again, a high five to Larry Zinn, Warren Zinn, the Zinn family. They're outside folks that help advise them, like Eric Day and the entire group at Warren Henry. They make my family feel like their family. Let them do the same for you. Remember, when you're looking for lease a car, buy a car, check out Warren Henry, Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar. Now they've got a gorgeous new Lincoln shop up at 151st and Biscayne. Up in Gainesville, they sell Audi. Down in the Keys, they've got all the great nameplates. South Dade, their award-winning Land Rover, Range Rover store. And, of course, in West Broward, they've got a great Land Rover, Range Rover store as well. Only the beginning for the Zinn family and Warren Henry. Remember, always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Well, now we're back with our good friend Tom Handler, founder of the Handler Law Firm up in Chicago, one of the top wealth protection and tax attorneys in the world. Mr. Mendoza, where's Tom? There he is. So, Tom, you know, we saw a shot of Warren there. We served that up just for you, the patriarch there. What's the final word that you want to give here looking forward? You know, it's year end, looking into next year. What do people have to be aware of, and what do you think is coming that they should address?
Yeah, 2 points. First, with respect to income tax, virtually everyone, the authors, the professionals, have been recommending strategies that accelerate income into 2024. And the reason for that was the expectation was that, one, it's going to go up automatically January 1, 2026. And if the election went the other way, it could go up quite a bit more a lot sooner. So that acceleration of income is a basic strategy of long-term tax planning, where if the rates are lower, you accelerate the income into your current year before they go up. If the rates are higher, you defer expenses to the next year. You get a bigger deduction for the expenses. So that acceleration deferral has kind of changed. So everything that's been written pre-election kind of is out the window. Though there's still a chance they don't extend the TCJA. I don't think that's likely. I think it will be extended. And so what that means is, like, one of the recommendations that's quite common has been to take your IRA, pay the tax on it, and roll it over to a Roth. And generally, that's a great idea. But the driver behind it was that the rate would be 37 rather than 39.6. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case now. So if you want to roll your Roth, you roll your Roth. It still is a good thing to do in many cases, but you're accelerating that income tax hit. But I think the income tax hit this year, next year, 2026 is likely to be the same. So I don't think that happens anymore. So that whole list of strategies is going to change. I think we're going to have more of a level playing field going forward. And then on the estate and gift side, similarly, we've done an incredible amount of very large estate transfers because people know that that exclusion amount was going to drop back down to 5, 6, 7 million, whatever it's indexed to, from its almost $14 million high next year. And so the driver of making all those gifts is diminished some because, again, if the TCJA is continued, which I think is likely, those exclusions from the estate tax will not drop. And so you don't have to make the gifts or large sale transactions to get things out of your estate as quickly. So if you want to take no chances, you can still do those transactions, or you can kind of wait and see what happens once the administration gets in, how quickly to get at this. But you'd have to do it. If they don't extend the provisions, you'd have to make those gifts or sales before the end of 2025, or they're gone. And the later in the year you wait, the harder you're going to find CPAs, lawyers, and valuation firms with any availability, because this has happened before. No one will be returning your phone call. So I suggest you make the decision summer, early fall at the latest, and even then you may have a tough time. So those are sort of the drivers of what this new administration looks like. If I'm to look out with a crystal ball, you never really know what Congress is going to do, but that's our best guess at this point.
Tom, I want to thank you as always for being on the show and giving us your insights and your perspective on wealth management for both the small business person and the high net worth investor. Look forward to having you on again after the new year to give us your opinion as things come more into focus. Thank you so much again, Tom, and please stick with us in the green room. We've got a couple other things we want to talk to you about the next show we're going to have. Remember, people can reach out to me, real estate. We work with a lot of high net worth investors, Sandstone Realty Advisors, just closed a couple of large transactions. Give us a call. We can help you figure out what to do with your real estate investing and your business investing. I want to remind everybody that if you missed something on today's episode, you can check out the replay on any of the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, or Instagram at Jim Fried or at Fried on Business. You can head on over to the at Jim Fried YouTube page, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or anywhere you listen to the audio. Check out all of our other podcasts there as well. I want to thank our sponsors, Warren Henry Automotive. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. You want to be part of that Warren Henry family. Of course, the Bergstrom Center for Real Estate Studies. Thank you for my education and my intern, Noah. And remember, everybody, and this one goes out to the small business people out there, the people that are self-made, the next gens in the family. The person who wants to do something finds a way. The other finds an excuse. Now go out there and make it happen. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Mr. Mendoza, the rest is yours.